Suddenly, Lloyd spots a glowing system screen, realizing RP stand for relationship points, though there's zero explanation on how to actually spend them. The system reveals that the key to unlocking RP is simple: improve his standing with key characters in this world. Before he can even process the news, a sudden interface notification pops up directly over Javier's head. Lloyd's jaw drops when he sees the harsh truth. Javier's approval rating of him is sitting at an abysmal -30. Desperate to fix his standing, Lloyd plasters on a slimy smile and cautiously approaches his cold-hearted bodyguard. He tries flattery right out of the gate, showering Javier with shameless praise about his striking good looks. But Javier shuts him down without flinching, sending Lloyd's approval rating plunging even lower to -31. Realizing forced compliments will only make things worse, Lloyd backs off to rethink his entire strategy. He heads straight into the local town, setting his sights on a tavern at the heart of the village. Lloyd corners the pub owner, boldly sliding a contract across the table and taking charge as the builder. He proposes a wild deal, promising to rebuild the ruined pub for free to wipe away the debt from his past destruction. But the tavern owner isn't buying it for a second, glaring at Lloyd with deep suspicion and mistrust. Driven by Lloyd's terrible reputation, the owner instinctively activates a mental wall of complete defense. Seeing his plan teetering on the brink of failure, Lloyd knows he has to pull out all the stops. If acting nice won't work, he decides to lean right into his notorious reputation as a ruthless hooligan. Lloyd twists his face into a terrifying scowl, menacingly towering over the pub owner to force his hand. Terrified into submission, the poor owner frantically signs on the dotted line, while the system labels Lloyd absolute garbage. Scoundrel tactics or not, Lloyd triumphantly secures his very first official construction order. He bursts into a victory laugh, leaving Javier silently questioning his master's dubious methods. Armed with a shovel, Lloyd prepares to break ground, figuring he doesn't need precise measurements for a simple build. Just as he sets to work, Javier interrupts him from behind with a stern, questioning tone. Javier bluntly calls him out, accusing Lloyd of extortion and plotting yet another scheme to stir up chaos. Instead of panicking, Lloyd hits Javier with a psychological counterlecture on cognitive distortion. He argues that Javier is letting past prejudice completely blind him to present good intentions. Javier calmly refutes the claim, insisting his mistrust is based purely on hard facts and bitter experience. But Lloyd turns the argument back on him, asking if experience and statistics aren't just remnants of the past. Speechless, Javier stands stunned by how smoothly his usually brainless master just out-talked him. Lloyd turns back to his digging, vowing to make the pub owner and his frail mother smile at any cost. He drives the shovel deep into the dirt with relentless determination, because, deep down, Lloyd knows those grateful smiles are the ultimate foundation for building his fortune. He throws himself into grueling manual labor, scooping and packing earth under Javier's watchful eye. Utilizing timber hauled from the Baron's residence, he carefully erects a sturdy wooden frame. He slathers river clay across the timber skeleton, meticulously shaping the walls of the structure. By the end of the build, Lloyd completely collapses onto the dirt, gasping for air from sheer exhaustion. Javier nonchalantly remarks that it didn't take long, only for an enraged Lloyd to scream that it took a whole week. Watching from afar, Javier begins to wonder where Lloyd could have possibly acquired such impressive construction skills. Though his muscles tremble from agony, Lloyd forces himself back up, knowing there's no time to waste. He reaches for an axe to chop firewood, but his weak body rebels against the heavy weight. He swings the axe above his head, shaking uncontrollably like a leaf in the wind. Overpowered by gravity, Lloyd staggers backward, on the verge of taking a dangerous tumble. At the last second, a strong, steady hand reaches out and catches the falling axe handle. Javier steps in effortlessly, snatching the axe right out of Lloyd's trembling grip. Without a hint of fatigue, Javier calmly asks Lloyd what exact dimensions he needs cut. With insane precision, Javier launches heavy wooden logs soaring into the open sky. He swings the heavy axe through the air with lightning speed and lethal grace. In a flash of brilliant motion, he slices the airborne logs into clean, perfectly uniform planks. Dumbfounded by the display of superhuman skill, Lloyd enthusiastically gives his bodyguard a big thumbs up. He realizes that with a future master swordsman by his side, he doesn't even need modern heavy machinery. Sensing an opportunity, Lloyd places a heavy hand on Javier's shoulder with a sly smirk. He cheekily asks Javier to join in on the heavy digging once he's finished chopping wood. Javier fumes with instant regret, realizing he just walked right into Lloyd's clever trap. Lloyd manipulates him further, pointing out that if Javier wants to uncover his true motives, he needs to help finish the job faster. With a wicked grin, Lloyd holds out a shovel, declaring they're doing this together. Javier secretly admits that Lloyd has changed, yet his dark past still makes him impossible to fully trust. Knowing the truth will reveal itself at the end, Javier decides the only way forward is to dig. Side by side, master and servant dig massive trenches into the ground at breakneck speed. They hurl dirt through the air in unison, pushing their bodies to the absolute limit. Finally, after endless sweat and labor, a cozy completed cottage stands proud on the land. Exhausted but victorious, Lloyd thrusts his fist into the sky, announcing the completion of the project. On the exterior wall, a custom wooden sign proudly displays Lloyd's newly carved brand logo. Javier inspects the strange symbol, listening as Lloyd confidently introduces it as his official company seal. Lloyd turns to Javier with a smirk, inviting him inside to finally witness the grand secret behind his plan. Outside the house, a fire roars in the hearth, sending heat channeling beneath the building's floorboards. Inside, warm steam fills the room as the pub owner's sickly mother lies comfortably on the floor. She gasps in utter relief, feeling the cozy underfloor warmth soothe her stiff, aching joints. The pub owner kneels in shock, amazed by the radiant heat rising directly through the stone floor. Lloyd watches with satisfaction, knowing the ancient power of traditional Korean ondol heating will revolutionize this world. The magic of radiant floor heating fills the room, transforming harsh winter cold into pure comfort. Overcome with emotion, the pub owner tearfully thanks Lloyd for bringing a genuine smile back to his mother's face. Standing in the doorway, Javier is stunned to see the owner and his mother beaming with true happiness. He realizes that despite Lloyd's rough tongue, he actually kept his promise to the common people. Javier struggles to reconcile the image of the notorious scoundrel with the compassionate builder standing before him. Against every expectation, Lloyd accomplished the impossible and brought genuine joy to this family. Seeing the mother and son sharing a moment of pure warmth, Javier's cold heart begins to melt. A soft, rare smile touches Javier's face as he takes in the heartwarming scene. System chimes ring out, revealing that Javier's approval rating has risen up to -29. The system rewards Lloyd with 36 precious relationship points for improving his bond with a key character. Lloyd smugly tries to gloat about earning Javier's trust, but Javier instantly shuts him down with a blunt denial. Reflecting on the job, Lloyd admits he took a financial loss on the timber, but knows it was worth every penny. Because this house was never just a building, it was a strategic model house built to showcase his work to the entire town. A few days later, a massive crowd of eager villagers lines up outside the model home. Emerging from the house, dripping in sweat, visitors are blown away by the incredible indoor heat. Lloyd seizes the moment, loudly hyping the magical warmth of his underfloor heating system to the crowd. He unveils detailed blueprints, offering full house construction and remodeling packages at a special combo discount. But despite their awe, a system warning pops up showing the villagers are still hesitant to trust the infamous Lloyd. Lloyd aggressively pressures the hesitant customers, claiming his low prices are practically a gift. Suddenly, a stern, commanding voice cuts through the noise, calling out Lloyd's name. System alerts flash as Lloyd's approval rating shifts dramatically in the presence of a newcomer. Lloyd turns around to face his imposing father, Baron Arcos Frontura, who demands an immediate explanation for his son's bizarre behavior. Lloyd sits awkwardly at a massive dining table across from his father, Baron Arcos, as cutlery clinks in tense silence. He glances sideways nervously, trying to gauge his father's stern expression. Lloyd remembers how he managed to avoid his father until now, dreading that the Baron might put an end to his construction business. Breaking the silence, the Baron looks up coldly and demands, "So let's hear it." The Baron leans in, sternly asking what kind of trouble Lloyd is cooking up this time. Putting on his best obnoxious Lloyd persona, he casually munches on sausage and explains he built an ondol room for the pub owner's order. As the Baron asks if the other villagers are making orders too, Lloyd munches away, realizing his father already knows everything happening in town. The Baron strictly warns him that the villagers are their subjects to protect, and he won't tolerate Lloyd lying to or tricking them. Smug and unfazed, Lloyd continues chewing, noting to himself that everyone always assumes the absolute worst of him. Lloyd politely excuses himself from the table, but inside his head, he's screaming at himself to run away as fast as possible. Just as he steps away, the Baron asks if Lloyd is doing all of this because of the family's crushing debt. The Baron reassures Lloyd that he will handle the family's financial troubles soon, telling his son not to get too involved. Lloyd pauses in his tracks, feeling a sudden chill as those words strike a deep, painful chord in his memory. A flashback surfaces of his past life as Kim Suho, remembering his real father telling him everything would be fine and to just focus on studying. Back then, Suho believed his father, only to realize too late that it was all a lie to hide their crippling reality. Fueled by painful memories, Lloyd vows to himself that he will never be driven to misery by money ever again. Turning around with newfound resolve, Lloyd looks his father in the eye and asks him not to give up, because Lloyd won't give up either. A ghostly silhouette of Suho appears behind him, wishing he had said those exact supportive words to his real father years ago. Striding down the grand corridor, Lloyd calculates that he already has 32 Style A and 57 Style B orders lined up with half the cash paid up front. Suddenly, he stops in his tracks as two ominous, richly dressed men walk right past him in the hallway. The system reveals their identities: moneylender Meatloaf and moneylender Shiloh, the infamous loan sharks. The two loan sharks strut past without giving the Lord's son even a single glance of respect. Lloyd turns around to watch them, instantly realizing why these dangerous figures have shown up at the estate. Inside the Baron's private office, Shiloh arrogantly perches on the desk, screaming at the Baron for missing their payment deadline by 5 days. Meatloaf aggressively threatens that if the Baron continues to stall, they will take ruthless action against the estate. Shiloh mocks the helpless lord, sarcastically suggesting he sell off the estate's heirlooms and furniture for quick cash. Peeking from behind the heavy wooden door, Lloyd quietly observes the confrontation with a subtle, sinister smile. Seeing the greedy loan sharks cornering his father, Lloyd realizes their arrival couldn't have been timed more perfectly. Lloyd twists his face into a villainous grin, realizing these vile scoundrels just walked right into his trap. Back in his room, Lloyd checks his status screen showing 36 accumulated relationship points, pondering how best to invest them. A system notification dings, explaining that RP can be invested to unlock powerful engineering abilities. When Lloyd sarcastically praises the system for actually explaining things, the system defensively pouts before Lloyd quickly apologizes. A glowing magic circle bursts to life beneath Lloyd's feet as the system begins scanning his soul. The system detects his real-world civil engineering degree, unlocking high-level skills like soil mechanics, hydraulics, and structural mechanics. Additional advanced skills flood his status, including water supply and sewage theory, steel and concrete design, and advanced programming. Shocked by his massive knowledge base, the system quips that he knows more than he looks, causing an enraged Lloyd to scream about his college scholarship. A menu appears displaying 2 purchasable skills based on his knowledge: Basic Surveying for 15 RP and Basic Design for 20 RP. Lloyd stares at the vague skill names, unable to tell what they actually do just from their titles. With 36 RP in hand, Lloyd decides not to overthink it and slams his hands on both options to buy them instantly. A blinding green flash erupts into his eyes as Basic Surveying unlocks, making Lloyd scream out in shock. Green 3D topographic grids overlay across his field of vision, allowing Lloyd to survey terrain with high-precision accuracy using his bare eyes. Next, Basic Design activates, allowing Lloyd to draw and manipulate glowing 3D architectural blueprints in midair using just his fingertips. Sitting on his bed, Lloyd realizes that while surveying and designing are now effortless, Javier alone won't be enough manpower for all these orders. He sighs, wishing he could somehow summon heavy construction machinery like excavators with his modern knowledge. Suddenly, the system dings with a surprising alert. If you want to summon, there is something. An ad-like window pops up announcing the random summon game, offering loyal summon partners with unique skills. Lloyd stares at the screen with deep skepticism, questioning if the system is trying to pitch him a mobile gacha game. Seeing the cost of 50 RP per pull, Lloyd grumbles in frustration, realizing he only has a single RP point left. He imagines summoning legendary mythological beasts like fire-breathing dragons and horned behemoths. Imagining a glorious divine unicorn at his command, Lloyd realizes a powerful summon creature could be just as useful as heavy machinery. Driven by greed and ambition, Lloyd's eyes ignite with a fierce fire, realizing he desperately needs to farm more RP immediately. He knows that to get more RP, he needs the key characters of this world to genuinely like him. Meanwhile, back in the Baron's office, Meatloaf violently slams his hand onto the desk, shouting in the Baron's face. Leaning in with a sickening smirk, Meatloaf sinisterly suggests that if the Baron has no money, he should sell the Baroness and her maidservants into human trafficking. Baron Arcos gasps in utter shock and fury, appalled by the loan shark's vile and unforgivable proposition. Before the Baron can react, a sharp, cold voice echoes from the doorway, questioning if being a lender gives someone the right to lack basic manners. Lloyd casually steps into the room, flinging a heavy, bulging bag of coins over his shoulder while resting his arm right on Meatloaf's shoulder. Startled out of his mind, Meatloaf leaps backward, screaming in shock at the intruder. The Baron stammers in disbelief as Meatloaf mocks Lloyd as the rude, peculiar eldest son interrupting their business. Meatloaf threatens to throw him out, but Lloyd casually shrugs and demands to see their official court warrant instead. Both loan sharks freeze in complete confusion, staring at him blankly. With cold authority, Lloyd begins citing legal code. The Royal Family and Nobility Act, Article 3, Clause 6. He narrows his eyes, quoting the exact law stating that entering a noble's residence without a warrant is legally classified as criminal trespassing. The loan sharks yell back in disbelief, claiming they have never heard of such a ridiculous law in their lives. Lloyd offers a mocking smile, suggesting they go find out together right now. He turns toward the open hallway and shouts at the top of his lungs for Javier. A heavy, deliberate footstep echoes outside as Javier instantly responds to the call. Javier appears in the doorway, looking cool and deadly with his hand resting firmly on the hilt of his rapier. Lloyd twists his face into a terrifying villain grin, giving his bodyguard a ruthless order: cut off this trespasser's arm. Javier immediately steps forward, drawing his lethal blade as the loan sharks shriek in terror, threatening to sue. Lloyd smirks mockingly, telling them they're about to find out whose side the judge will take. Javier unsheaths his rapier with a sharp shing, aura gleaming along the razor-sharp edge. Close up on the loan sharks' faces as their arrogance completely shatters into sheer, unadulterated horror. Terror-stricken, the two moneylenders turn tail and run for their lives, screaming that Lloyd will regret this. The massive office door slams shut behind the fleeing loan sharks with a heavy thud. Lloyd waves off their empty threats with a smug chuckle, dismissing them as completely absurd. In the quiet room, the Baron stands frozen, staring at his son in utter disbelief. The Baron slams his hands on the desk, panicking about what Lloyd just did and crying out that they don't have enough money to stave off the debt collectors. With a heavy clank, Lloyd casually drops the massive, bulging sack of gold coins onto his father's desk. Lloyd smiles warmly, explaining that this advance money from his construction orders will cover a massive chunk of this month's interest. The Baron gasps in horror, accusing Lloyd of taking money from their own subjects and extorting the common folk. Before Lloyd can defend himself, Javier steps up from behind, speaking in a calm, steady voice. "Fear not, my lord." Javier looks at the Baron with absolute conviction, declaring that he will personally ensure Master Lloyd fulfills every single order. Looking at Javier's face, the Baron sees total sincerity, realizing his most loyal knight now completely trusts Lloyd. Javier bows politely to the lord, announcing that they will take their leave. Side by side, Lloyd and Javier walk out of the Baron's office together. As they walk down the corridor, Javier asks how an ignorant man like Lloyd knew about such an obscure nobility law, prompting an annoyed Lloyd to claim he just picked it up somewhere. In truth, Lloyd remembers where he really learned it, from reading about Javier's future in the original web novel. A dark flashback reveals a rainy graveyard where the Baron and Baroness committed suicide after going bankrupt in the original story. In that timeline, the two greedy loan sharks came to dig up their corpses to sell off to recoup their debt. Standing over his master's graves in the pouring rain, Javier quoted that exact same Nobility Act, Article 3, Clause 6. In a flash of cold steel, Javier executed both loan sharks on the spot, severing their heads in the rain. And when Javier was brought before a royal judge, he was declared completely not guilty under that exact law. Walking beside his bodyguard, Lloyd smiles inwardly, realizing that possessing future knowledge of this novel is an absolute cheat code. Lloyd strokes his chin with a smirk, anticipating that a system reward pop-up should be arriving any second. Right on cue, a system notification dings. Baron Frontera's approval rating increased by 6 points, rewarding Lloyd with 60 RP for a new total of 61 RP.